They say in Ebira land, a stranger who arrives during a Kogi season carries two things, his load and whatever followed him on the road. That evening, a man named Onimisi came down the stone path from the rocky hills outside Okene, dust on his sandals, leather bag on his shoulder, eyes that had seen too many roads. The village watched him the way small places watch strangers, quietly, carefully, from a distance. Children scattered. An old man tightened his grip on his walking stick. Nobody moved to greet him. Onimisi only asked for one night's rest.
It was a woman named Oiza who took him in. She was warm-faced and slow-smiling, the kind of woman who made you feel expected. She brought him food without being asked. She sat with him by the fire and spoke very little. And when his eyes grew heavy and the fire burned low, she placed something in his hands, a cloth bundle. "For the road," she said, "so you always find your face." He unwrapped it, a mirror, old, dark-framed, with glass so smooth it seemed to swallow the light. Too beautiful for a stranger to give away so freely. Onimisi said it was too much, but Oiza was already walking into the darkness. "Keep it close," she said, "always." Morning came hard and bright over the Ebira hills. Onimisi stepped outside ready to leave, and that is when he noticed. Every person in that compound cast a shadow. The old man, the children, the chickens, even the mango tree. Everything had a shadow. Everything except him. He stepped left. Nothing followed. He raised his hand. The ground beneath him stayed clean and unmarked. Before he could make sense of it, a small boy looked at his feet and screamed. Not the cry of a startled child, something deeper, something that knew. The boy's mother snatched him up and went inside without once looking at Onimisi's face. Among the Ebira, they say a man without a shadow has already been claimed. His body just hasn't been told yet. Onimisi went back into the village, hoping someone would tell him he was imagining things. Instead, the world began to forget him. The man he had greeted yesterday looked at him like a stranger. The market woman who had laughed with him the morning before looked straight through him, as if he were made of air. He grabbed the arm of a young man passing by. The young man flinched and pulled away, uneasy, unable to explain why. Onimisi lifted the mirror and looked at himself. He was still there, but the edges of his reflection were soft, blurred, fading slowly from the outside in, like a face seen through glass fogged with breath. He locked himself in the room and sat with the mirror on his knees in the half-dark. At first, the reflection was still, then a tilt of the head, a shift of the shoulders, small movements, too deliberate to ignore. Then his reflection raised one finger, slow and steady, and Onimisi's hands had not moved at all. He asked it what it was. His voice came out smaller than he intended. The reflection opened its mouth wide. No sound came through the glass, but the room filled with a low, hollow hum, like a drum struck inside a sealed grave. That was when Onimisi understood. The mirror did not show you who you were. It showed you who had taken your place. He went back to Aiza's compound in the full light of day and found ruins, crumbling walls, a choked courtyard, a fire pit cold and gray with old ash. The compound had been abandoned for years. A neighbor watched him from across the path, arms folded, saying nothing at first. Oyiza had been dead for 15 years, the neighbor finally said. And before she disappeared, the story was that she had given something away, something she herself had been given by a stranger years before. Onimisi looked down at his own hand holding the mirror. Through his fingers, faint but unmistakable, he could see the red earth beneath them.
He did not run. He walked back to that abandoned courtyard, sat down in the dirt, and placed the mirror face up on the ground before him. He thought about his father's name, his father's father, the compound he grew up in, the sound of his mother calling him home. Then he spoke, not in fear, but in the voice of a man who knows exactly who he is. I am Onimisi, son of Adaviruku, Ohuje of the Okene Hills. My name was given to me by the living and the dead alike. You cannot take what was never yours. The mirror vibrated. Cracks spread across the dark frame. Ekulo, he said louder. Go back. The land of the dead is not my home yet. He drove the mirror face down into the earth. The ground shuddered. A sound tore through the air, something between a scream and the wind. The sound of something ancient being refused. Then silence.
Onimisi stood up and looked at the ground. His shadow was back, long and dark and sharp-edged, stretching behind him in the late afternoon sun like it had never left. He exhaled, picked up his bag, walked back through the village. This time, people saw him. They nodded. A woman called out a greeting. A child tugged at his wrapper. One woman said his name, said it clearly, without being told it, and Onimisi stopped walking, closed his eyes, and breathed. They say in Ebira land that some curses are not meant to destroy you. They are a question, asked by something old and patient, asking whether you still know your own name when the world has been made to forget it. Onimisi walked out of those hills whole. But the next morning, the mirror was gone. The ground where it had been driven into the earth was smooth and unmarked, as if nothing had ever been placed there. And somewhere on the road between one village and the next, a stranger was walking, carrying a leather bag and a cloth bundle he had not yet opened.